Good evening, East Goshen. Hope you had a great day. It is a bit later than normal for these videos, but I didn't want to miss the moment here. I thought it would be best to actually wait till evening because we're tracking along with the story of Holy Week. We're tracking what Jesus is doing in the moments and hours leading up to his trial, his crucifixion, and his eventual resurrection on Easter. And so we are working our way through the Gospel of John. Last week we were in chapters 11 and 12. And this week we'll be in the corresponding chapters to the days in question. And so for today we'll be in John chapter 13, which depicts the Last Supper. Today is Maundy Thursday, which many of us don't know what Maundy means. I had a friend in seminary who would always joke that it was Monday, Thursday, and he thought that was hilarious, and the joke to him never got old. But Maundy comes from the Latin term mandatum, which means command. And then the reason that it's called Command Thursday or Mandate Thursday is because of John 13, verse 34, where Jesus says, "A new command I give to you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another." It'd be really easy for me to focus on that verse for this evening, but what I want to do is back up in the passage and see how this gets fleshed out in the life of the disciples. And so John chapter 13, again, this is the Last Supper, but it's unique from other Last Supper depictions in the other Gospels. We don't have a communion moment in this Gospel. John's Gospel omits this moment where Jesus breaks bread, takes the cup, and distributes it to his disciples as an act of remembrance and reverence for his sacrifice. The closest thing we get in the Gospel of John to a communion moment is in John chapter 6, where Jesus says, "I am the bread of life. If anyone would follow me, they must eat my flesh and drink my blood." And the people are bewildered in that time because they don't understand that Jesus has to die for their sake. The disciples don't understand at the time that Jesus must be broken and poured out for the sake of the world. And so that's the communion moment in the Gospel of John. Here in chapter 13, we actually get a unique story to this Gospel, which has been the case throughout the Gospel of John. The raising of Lazarus was a unique story, and so is this Last Supper depiction. This is where we get the story of Jesus kneeling and washing the feet of his disciples. It's how the chapter opens, and Jesus taking the role of a servant, taking the job that a servant normally would do, takes off his outer garment, gets a bowl of water, and washes the feet of his disciples. In first century culture, it would have been common for a servant to have done this. After days of traveling or a long day of work, your feet would have been dirty because of the sandals that you would have worn. And so a servant would have washed your feet and prepared you for the meal. They would have prepared you to partake in a celebratory dinner. And so in this Last Supper that Jesus and his disciples share, he takes on the role of servant, demonstrates to them what it looks like in practicality to love people well. That command that he gives in verse 34, he fleshes it out here at the beginning of the chapter. And so for our purposes this evening, our focus verse will be verse 14, where Jesus says, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet." Verse 15 continues, "I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." Jesus here demonstrates what service and love look like. That it's the laying down of yourself, your ego, your needs, your rights, your power, your authority, your influence, is laying yourself down for the sake of other people. And that is the power structure that Jesus demonstrates. He takes on the role of servanthood. He becomes lesser for our sake. It's a small depiction of the greater story of Jesus' ministry. And so when he looks around at his disciples and says, "Love one another," he's demonstrating in the moments preceding just how to love one another, to put the needs of others first, to not think so highly of yourself that you won't be willing to stoop down and wash the dirty feet of people who have been journeying with you through life. So how are you engaging in service? How are you making yourself a servant for the sake of the gospel and to fulfill this command of love? So I hope you'll join me tomorrow. It's late, but 2,000 years ago, Jesus' night was not yet over. He still had to go into the garden and pray with his disciples, comfort them for what was about to take place. He would have to be betrayed by Judas, arrested by the soldiers, and taken away to the religious leaders to stand trial. No, Jesus' night is just beginning. And I hope you'll join me tomorrow as we go through the narrative of Good Friday, which is an ironic title for the day, but it is an ironic moment on the cross, where what was meant for shame and dishonor was used for the glory of Christ and for the defeat of sin and death. So I hope you'll join me tomorrow. It'll be an earlier video, but have a great night, and I will see you soon. Thanks.